Hey, good morning. It's Fort Worth Playboy. Welcome to the Fort Worth Playboys morning show. And this is our second. Yesterday was our inaugural broadcast, and I'm still trying to figure out where to look at. And there may be some technical glitches. In fact, I guarantee there will be some technical glitches in today's show. And the purpose of this show is, if you've been on mine and Bunny's timeline over time, we try to stay out of the politics, the horrible things of the day, the current news, and kind of focus in on game, pickup, relationships, and sex. The things that you can kind of rely on. If you come to our timeline, that's going to be our main focus. You can kind of put the other stuff or the larger meta topics to the side. We try to stay out of it. Everybody has their strengths and their specialties, and game is for me, and sex is for Bunny. And there's worse things to have in a woman than having her be a sex expert. And so that is the gist of our morning program, is kind of get your head right, let you have get your head right early in the morning, and get your day started off in the right direction. And right now, we'll start trying to run some video tomorrow, but this morning we'll still go through the timeline, look at some basic tweets and game, and basically ferreting out, learning more about game and women, and what's on the timeline. And then we can expand from there. If you have questions, go through YouTube, please. If you type something into Twitter, they're not quite there yet. I can't see any questions that you ask on Twitter, so you have to switch over. You got to go over to YouTube. And I never want to pull anybody off of Twitter unnecessarily, because they're the ones that were so good to us, especially the first couple of years. So if you do have questions, by all means, let us know. Let me know in the chat box, and we'll go from there. So let me get the screen up. Look at what we have today. And I always start off with a maxim from Chateau Harit, because Chateau is really how I ended up here. Years ago, after going through a divorce, I stumbled on Chateau Harit's blog, and it was an interesting thing. The way he wrote, the lessons that he conveyed, really rung with me. And it's one of those things that, it's funny when you learn game, you hear 2 or 3 stories into it, and you go, and you can look back and you can go, oh, that's what happened. Like, if there was some girl that you're like head over heels, in love with, and you treat her like a princess and you're always good to her, but she dumped you for a guy that like ignored her and treated her like shit, you go, oh, that makes sense now. So there's a lot of things about game. You're like, does it work? All you have to do is look at your own history, and quite often you'll see where it could have predicted what was going to happen. And we also teach you how to avoid those pitfalls of being too nice or being a nice guy, but still, not being scorched earth about things. So maxim number 27, pussies are more pliable in the company of competing pussy. The deal is that most girls, they don't even know that they like you until they feel a little bit of jealousy. That's why you having a girl with you, either dating a lot of girls or always having a girl with you, wherever you go, is always a good thing. Girls quite often don't. Again, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around how their brain works, but there's so many men out there pinging them, trying to fuck them, that they really have to stop seeing most men. It's just like, it's kind of like in the movie The Matrix, where it's all number ones and zeros. And only the alphas can kind of show up. But if she's familiar with you and she's used to you being Bob, and Bob from finance, but then Bob from finance isn't that interesting, but Bob from finance shows up to like a company party with a hot chick on his arm, Well, that's interesting. Bob, what's Bob got? How did Bob do that? So then the curiosity starts to work. That's where when girls are competing, that's when they tend to be more open to suggestion, easier to pick up. And again, even, if you notice, and we always talk about referral pussy, is, if you're dating a girl casually, or even if you're serious, and she's telling good stories about you, her girlfriends become very interested in you. And that is where that referral comes from. And at least once a week, I'll share a story where a guy comes up with some type of referral story where, whether he's still with the girl or, they will, the girlfriend's friends will start hitting on him after they break up because they've heard the stories and they want to see if the rumors are true. So there's never any bad side to, giving it your all. But again, girls are more pliable in the company of competing girls, and it never hurts you. And they'll pretend that they don't like it. It's kind of like one of those things that I go, what are women looking for? And I always say in there, I'll say, like arrogance, self-confidence, but in there is also evidence that you're banging other women. And these girls will be all upset. Like, no, we don't. No. The closer you are to the truth, the more they protest. And it's something that makes them probably uncomfortable, and that's okay, but it actually works. They want to know that you're attractive to other women. I think we'll get into some of the reasons why that's a fact in today's thread. Girls' red flags, things that you need to kind of, that you need to watch out for if you're kind of shopping around for something a little bit more serious, or if you've been dating a girl casually and you're picking up on her backstory. There's things that, if you're going to become more serious, you may want to be aware of. It's not my job to judge, what's good to go for you. Everybody has some history. So you have to kind of pick and choose what you can accept. But we don't want you walking around blind to a girl's unwritten history or the secret history, because all girls have, so many skeletons in their closet. If they open their mouth, they fall out. But red flags and why they're red flags when you're talking to a girl. I spent years backpacking in Europe. Any type of travel is always an indicator of a lot of casual sex, a lot of casual and anonymous sex over time, and a focus on it. Girls don't travel to necessarily see the Sistine Chapel. They like to meet some Italian men. That's one of those things that is unspoken, but that's what the trip is for. Lived in Las Vegas for a decade. Anybody you have that lived in Las Vegas, LA, Miami, the big cities, it's always asking for trouble. But of course, Las Vegas being Sin City, you can almost guarantee, even if she tells you, she worked for her uncle's company or whatever, they were involved or they were exposed to a lot of gambling, stripping, and nightlife, and just the debauchery. And prostitution's legal too. So you have to, if you're seeing some bad signs, you have to keep that in mind. But usually I've been in Vegas, I spent 7 years in Vegas from 20 to 27. She's seen a lot of shit. And she may be reformed, who knows? But these are things you need to be aware of. My last 2 boyfriends were in jail, and it's actually not as uncommon, especially when you're younger, like 18 to 21, that girls will be like dating the hardcore criminals. And just out of nowhere, you'll be like, well, no shit. And so usually they're going to come back. So be aware. My job requires a lot of traveling. Again, the travel should automatically key you into this girl has a lot of casual sex, and it's on her agenda of things she likes. Spent a year doing yoga in Costa Rica. It's usually a combination. If they're traveling, like they're doing Tulum, they're doing Bali, Ibiza, any of the major like hangouts, there's a lot of drugs, and wherever you find drugs, you find lots of sex. And the drugs don't necessarily stop when they come back to the States. And the sex doesn't stop when they come back to the States. But anybody that spent, a year in Central America teaching yoga, there's a lot of sex, a lot of drugs, a lot of travelers, a lot of people in and out. So there's just a lot of mileage built up. And that's really what red flags mean, is not necessarily that the person is completely damaged beyond all repair. It's just you're looking at a high mileage girl that, they try to turn the odometer back or they try to turn it off, but it's going to be under there somewhere. And unfortunately, it usually, surfaces during times of heavy stress. So that's why you want to be aware of it. Sex work is honest work. Again, it falls back to the living in Las Vegas for a decade. Any girl that pretty much condones it might have a history in it, or she has a girlfriend that she knows in it. And again, birds of a feather flock together. I love being in the military. I talked about this yesterday, and I was enlisted. I talked to a lot of girls in the military. They weren't necessarily my thing. But, you talk to a few 100,000 girls over time, and you start seeing patterns develop. Every girl enlisted in the military that I dealt with at some point admitted that they were running from some man in their life when they enlisted. They were running from abusive dad, stepdad, brother, uncles, it just a bad boyfriends, ex-husbands, husbands. And, we even had like dads show up on posts, like looking for their daughter because she had enlisted and left and gone to basic. So you have to know that. And then being in the military, even a 2 or a 3 starts looking pretty good. They're going to get a disproportionate amount of attention for where they are actually, their market value. So it messes, it's a very masculine environment. So you've got like these 2, 3 big things working against them. So the military isn't always a good thing. A lot of people get straightened out, and a lot of men get straightened out in it. But most girls I see, come from troubled backgrounds. They get into the military, and then when it gets really tough, they kind of like they get pregnant and try to get out. And that's just a common thing. And then look at my tattoos. We always talk about tattoos not being necessarily a deal breaker if they're small and easily hidden, but pretty much if a girl has a sleeve, there's something going on. And there's just, you have to kind of look at the situation and judge each situation, on its own merits. But again, that's what you have to look at is, I've never heard a girl that got a tattoo for something fun to memorize, for a memory. It's more of I went through a really hard time in my life, and then I got this cross on my ankle. If you ask, and I don't even recommend that, it's not going to be the best, or they'll tell you that they regret doing it. It's not usually a pleasant memory. So these are the things that you have to say that, it's like looking at a car. It's going to have high mileage, and that's just what you have to weigh when you're looking at, if you just want to hook up, they can be fun. You just have to know that they're like probably going to disappear pretty quick. When they do disappear, this isn't the type of girl. A girl with high mileage isn't really going to like go, hey, I've got a new boyfriend, I'm not going to be able to. They're just going to disappear. Then they might show back up. That's just the way it is. Because if you understand the game and you're used to being around girls and they know that you just get it, then you're going to get girls that just disappear, and they expect you to understand that. And that's okay. That's part of understanding women. So ignore her beauty. This one's kind of long. And if you do want to look at this, I'm not going to read through the entire thing. The basic gist is the man who trains his mind to subdue the reward centers of his brain when reflecting upon a beautiful female face will magically transform his interactions with women. His apprehension and self-consciousness will melt away. paving the path for more honest and self-possessed interactions with the objects of his desire. This is one of those things where you cannot put girls on a pedestal. And it's really an advantage if mentally you train yourself and you practice, and you have to do it consciously in the beginning. When you're in front of attractive girls, I always say, look for a flaw. Her eyes are too wide, bushy eyebrows, bad hairline. This brings her back down, because this is what happens is guys, even seasoned players, they start mentally putting a girl on a pedestal because of her appearance, and then they treat her differently. And it's actually the ones that the players will like that they'll start treating differently and lose and fumble the ball. And every player has a story like that. They're like, yeah, and then I just started treating her really nice, and I couldn't stop thinking about how hot she was, and she like ghosted me because he didn't treat her like every other girl that's out there. And girls want to earn your admiration, and especially if they're beautiful. And that's why there's simple little things you can, like, no compliments, no gifts. And the no compliments thing goes a long way, because girls are so used to guys like doting on them. You're so pretty, sending them stuff, doing stuff for them. But when you don't give a compliment, and I practice this, and it's funny, it's so unusual that even like I'd be out on a first date, and probably about 3/4 of the way through, they'd always go, well, what do you think? And they honestly weren't getting any feedback, because they're used to a guy kind of being effusive, and I say, well, I like your lazy eye, or, you're pretty, except for one eye's higher than the other. Just fuck with them. But again, no compliments, because it's so unusual, and you're used to being around good-looking women, and good-looking women are comfortable around you. And that's really what you convey when you don't let their appearance overwhelm your brain. But you do have to practice this, and that's how you kind of like can move up. Some guys, they can jump right in with an 8, but most guys, I think, and this is just conjecture, it's easier to kind of like move up from 6, and they start banging a lot of 6s and 7s. A 7 shows up, and then an 8. And again, there's not that many 8s out there. So you kind of have to look at the whole picture. There's a lot of 5s and 6s, because average is average. But again, if you want to move up in the appearance category, then it's best to get really good at like shutting it down. But the more girls you're banging, the easier this is to do. And a lot of guys do it unconsciously. They really just kind of like fall into it, because they're having so much sex when they do this thing right, that everybody is in play, and they don't even really realize how good looking the girl is when she's in front of him, because he just had sex like that morning and the day before with a different girl. So pretty much however satisfied you are, and it'll come through in girls, they go, yeah, I just can kind of tell. It comes through in your mannerisms, in your relaxed attitude. Again, you got to remember, most girls that are attractive go through life like people open the doors for them, people bending over backwards. They never get a ticket. They're always being promoted. They're always being given money. Everything kind of falls in their lap. Some appreciate it, some don't. That's not the purpose of this. But again, when you're more neutral and treat her like everybody else, it's different, and makes you stand out. Again, ignore her beauty. And where does this come from? This is one of the 16 commandments of Poon, from Chateau Harit. And it's in Chateau Harit, the best of Chateau Harit. It's the very first chapter, is the 16 commandments of Poon, that goes through 16 laws of game that when you apply them, you're going to improve your life with women, and help you better control how it goes. And see, let's get to the third one here. So when you occasionally, I don't know why I quoted myself here. Let's go up one more. I advise men concerned about a girl's background. The problem is you're never, ever going to actually know what her body count is. That's one of those, and I've noticed that guys younger than like 30, 35 tend to be more concerned with it. And as you get older into adulthood, like by 35 or 40, everybody's kind of war torn. They're kind of like weary. They're like, everybody's had a lot of sex at this point. If they didn't have lots of sex with lots of different people, she had lots of sex with her husband. So everybody, by the time you're in your mid 30s to 40s, it becomes a little bit less of an issue. There's damage, but it's usually the younger crew under 30, especially under 25, that it's probably going to weigh heavier on like what is a girl's honest answers. I advise men concerned about a girl's background. The problem is you're never really going to know. I've noticed after she loses the first guy for being completely honest, girls start to pull back on truth telling. They might go through a why does it matter phase, but most go straight to I'm not fucking up another relationship. I'm lying my ass off from now on. Again, and you can see this in some of like the memes where the girl has like 156 guys she slept with and she's got a list. And she tells some dude that she actually is interested in. And he like literally like ghosts her immediately. Well, girls have to learn to lie pretty quick because they realize that telling the truth is going to be a cock blocker every time. Again, your average girl is going to say 3. You go through enough women, you start hearing the same phrases no matter what has happened. They have been with 3 men, their high school boyfriend, a college boyfriend, and one serious relationship after college. And they've been celibate for 2 years. No matter what, it's always been 2 years, and you go, oh, well, 2 years. And they're like, yeah, well, I broke up with my last serious boyfriend 2 years ago. Whereas you as a player know that girls are never single. They're always seeing someone. They are masters at hiding men that they're having sex with from other men and other men that they're having sex with. It's hardwired. They're good at it. You'll never know. So you just kind of have to accept these things. And they do learn, the first time, if they haven't learned from their mom or from their girlfriends or from like their YouTube, that being honest about their background is a bad idea, because you'll always have girls that don't necessarily know it's a bad idea. Most do, but they're honest, and the guy ghosts them. They're like, well, okay, I've learned my lesson. They don't tend to do, they're not like men where we make the same mistake like 5 or 10 times, like you have like 8 DWIs. They tend to take a beating that first time, and that self-preservation kicks in, and they learn to very quickly lie about anything negative. And that's why, we always say it takes a couple of years to really get to know a girl. And girls rail against this usually because they're hardwired for subterfuge. But even Bunny will agree with me on this. It takes a couple of years to kind of see everything and let the bad stuff kind of float up and see her in every situation. But we do advise men, you're never really going to know. Just assume, it's a classic phrasing from Chateau. Assume she is a slut, and you'll seldom be disappointed. That way, if she's not, you can be pleasantly surprised, but you're not caught off guard. And so that's the deal. Let's see what else if we have one more. 9 times out of 10, she is already as fat, and 10 times out of 10, she is lazy. This is the truth. Most girls are overweight, and if they're not overweight, they will become overweight. And it's kind of like we tell guys, okay, they're like, oh, this girl's really liberal. She does this. She she doesn't like, like the music I listen to. It doesn't matter. Girls tend to absorb or pick up the habits of the guy that they're fucking. Not necessarily the guy that they like. The guy that they're fucking is who they will. If you listen to country music and she goes to metal concerts and you fuck her long enough, she's going to start listening to country music. It's just the way they're wired. They adapt to the guy that they're in front of. They've never watched sports in their life. Now they're going to a baseball game once a week because the guy that they're fucking loves baseball. It's that simple. And so the only exception to this is health and fitness. And I know because we've been in the gym business and we've been getting people into shape since the 80s. Girls will, they'll pick up, your likes in vehicles and how you want to run your family, music, beer, alcohol, food, all that. But fitness, if you're a workout guy, don't expect her. If she's not a workout girl, don't expect her to pick it up. What she'll say is, oh, that fitness thing? Oh, yeah, that's his thing. Because if they're hardcore about not working out, you're not going to be able to get them to. It's got to be an internal motivation thing. And there's exceptions. And we've even talked about that, how to get my girl into the gym. But again, don't bet on it. And don't bet on it through osmosis, because you're talking about a multi-year project to get a girl that's not a fitness girl or not a workout girl to go into the gym. So that's one thing I always kind of convey to guys is just know it's the one thing that probably matters most to guys is her to preserve her appearance. And it's the last thing that she'll actually pick up from you if you already had the fitness bug, and you've been working. And again, that's why, they need to already have that component, that fitness component. If that's something that's important to you, because it's going to become a aggravator and a cause of friction all the time. Because when you're training, if you travel, you want to train. If you're, visiting her parents, you want to get up and train in the morning before you spend the entire day with her parents. All of it. And if they don't work out, they're not going to understand. And if her family doesn't work out, they're definitely not going to understand. So, yeah, Stan says lazy and boring. That's really the truth. So this is one of those things that if you're talking about fitness, they need to have some type of inclination towards it already. If that's an important part of your life, that's what you should probably look for at the end of the day. But we kind of went off on a tangent. Tomorrow we'll probably have 2 or 3 topics, have some video to play and to take apart. If you have any ideas of, if you have any questions, I want to be able to answer them on the morning show. Or if you have any suggestions on how to make it better, I would love to hear from you. And you can reach us through either through the YouTube comments, or you can Twitter on comments. I see all the comments all day, or you can direct message on Twitter and I'll see it. I know there's some restrictions. Some people can't message, but just reach out to me if you can't through one of the comments or the replies, and I'll reach out to you. Again, let's see if I can get this done properly today. Hang on for 1 second. There we go. Okay, what do I suggest? You can't fuck her if you don't know that she's interested. And you're going to get rejected if you don't know how to identify girls that are interested. So I wrote indicators of interest. How to know if a girl is interested in you. And what I did was, guys were like, I can't even tell when a girl's, and they're missing out on the pussy simply because they don't know that this girl is interested in them. And so I put this book together, and it's everything from, if a girl is interested in you, she's going to put herself first in your proximity. And that's why I always tell guys, always say hi to every attractive woman you see. But it goes more in depth into things that they will do, one, before you've made contact, after you've made contact, after you've been dating for a while, how they'll show interest through text and through direct message communications. That way that way you can read what is going on in front of you. And quite often, and I try to give good examples like where she's like got eye contact and she's leaning in and she's smiling. And if you don't know to look for these things, you don't recognize it, and you're kind of flying blind. You're like, I don't know if this girl even likes me. Am I boring her? When she's actually warming up to you and she's going in the direction you would like her to. And when you know what the indicators of interest are, you're going to close more women. It's just the way it is. And then, after you practice this, and I mean, within like a month or two where you're aware of what the indicators of interest are, everything kind of slows down. Like when you're talking to girls and just kind of like playing a sport. When you first start playing a sport, everything's kind of fast and chaotic. And then as you get better and your body starts picking up patterns in your eye and you're able to discern what's going on in front of you, everything slows down. And the best athletes are able to, like, what do they say, like football, they're able to like read the defense. It slows down for a quarterback. He can see everything that's happening and he's picking it up and discerning it faster than anyone else on the field. But that's what you start doing, is you're able to discern a girl's interest really quickly as it's happening in front of you. You can adjust your game and close more women. Again, indicators of interest, how to know if a girl is interested in you. And I'll put a link down below, or you can find it at Fort Worth Playboy at Gum Road. And it's all up and down on my timeline. So, gentlemen, I appreciate you watching. I appreciate your time. It's valuable. I hope that you take something away from this broadcast, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, 7 a.m. Central Time. Have a great day.